My name is Renee, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived in a house where love came with conditions, and those conditions always seemed to favor someone else. My sister, Bella. She wasn't evil. Let me be clear about that. She didn't pull my hair or steal my toys or push me down the stairs. No, Bella was much more dangerous than that. She was perfect, or at least that's the lie everyone in our family worked overtime to protect. 3 years younger than me, Bella was the kind of child people adored instantly. With her green eyes, soft voice, and dramatic expressions, she could charm a crowd with a pout. Adults bent over backwards to praise her teachers, neighbors, distant relatives. It didn't matter what she did. The narrative stayed the same. Bella is special. And me? I was just there. The responsible one. The quiet one. The one who never caused trouble. The one they expected to clean up after storms I didn't start, most of them wearing Bella's name. I remember one Christmas vividly. I was 11. I'd spent the entire fall practicing a solo for the holiday concert at school. I was nervous, but proud. I stood on that stage in my best dress, trying not to shake as I sang my heart out. And when it was over, the room clapped. But when I looked into the crowd, my parents weren't even paying attention. They were leaning over Bella, helping her unwrap a candy cane someone had handed her. She beamed at them, and they both laughed, completely missing the one moment I had worked toward for weeks. Later that night, Dad told me I sounded nice and handed Bella the last piece of pie. That moment lodged itself in me like a splinter under the skin. Small, sharp, permanent. At the time, I tried to rationalize it. She's the youngest. She needs more attention. They're just tired. They didn't mean to ignore you. You're being dramatic. Don't be selfish. But the splinters kept coming. I got straight A's? That's what we expect from you. Bella got a C-. She's trying her best. I stayed home to help when Mom was sick. Barely a word. Bella drew a wobbly flower. It went straight on the fridge like it was painted by Van Gogh. I think the worst part wasn't even the neglect. It was being gaslit into thinking I was imagining it. That I was the jealous one. That I was the problem. Because I wasn't soft like Bella. Because I didn't cry when I was scolded. Because I didn't beg for hugs or play helpless. But that was never me. I was quiet, yes. I observed. I kept things bottled because every time I tried to speak up, I was told to be the bigger person, to set a good example. They said it like a compliment. But I know now it was just code for, swallow your pain. Let her shine. And I did. For years. Until I couldn't anymore. Because eventually, that kind of unspoken unfairness grows teeth. And mine? Were starting to show. I didn't hate Bella back then. I envied her. I resented how effortlessly she was loved, how easily she got away with everything. How she could cry and have the world bend for her, while I could be screaming inside, and no one would notice. But what I didn't know yet, what no one told me, was that one day, the pedestal they built for her would come crashing down. And I'd be the one holding the truth in my hands. I was 16 when I finally let the resentment slip through the cracks. It was my birthday, a milestone I had tried not to build expectations around. Experience had taught me that hoping for too much only led to disappointment. Still, some small part of me, stubborn and naive, believed this year might be different. I woke up early that morning, the kind of early where the sky's still gray and the house is silent. I padded down the hall, half expecting streamers, a balloon, maybe even pancakes on the stove. But there was nothing. No happy birthday banner. No whispers of surprise. Just Bella in the living room, already watching TV in her pajamas like it was any other Saturday. I tried not to care. I really did. I showered, dressed, and waited. Hours passed. Noon came. Then 1. Then 2. No one said a word. No card. No gift. Not even a hug. Eventually, I went outside to sit on the porch, my hands gripping my phone like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. That's when Bella came out, humming to herself, sipping lemonade like nothing was wrong. I looked at her, really looked at her, and something inside me cracked. You know what today is, right? I asked. She blinked. Saturday. It's my birthday. She paused, lips parted. Oh, right. I forgot. No apology. No concern. Just a shrug and, well, Mom said we're going to Aunt Rachel's later. So maybe they'll do something there. They didn't. That night at Aunt Rachel's was supposed to be about me. That's what I was told, that the dinner was in my honor. But as soon as we arrived, Bella stole the spotlight like she always did. She wore a new dress, one I hadn't seen before, and everyone kept saying how stunning she looked. She performed some silly TikTok dance in the living room, and suddenly the whole party was cheering her name. I stood in the kitchen, watching from behind a tray of deviled eggs, forgotten. Just like every year. That night, when we got home, I finally exploded. I stood in the hallway and said it, loud, raw, and trembling. Why do you always make everything about her? You forgot my birthday. Again. Mom turned to me, annoyed. That's not fair. We went to your aunt's, didn't we? That wasn't for me, I snapped. That was just another excuse for Bella to soak up all the attention while I'm treated like a coat rack in the background. Dad jumped in then, his tone sharp. Watch your tone, Renee. This family does a lot for you. That did it. Tears surged up from somewhere I didn't know existed. A lot for me? I choked. You've ignored me my entire life. You don't even know what I want, what I like, who I am. You forgot my birthday. You've never once asked me how I'm actually doing. Bella gets all your love, and I get lectures. Bella stood at the top of the stairs, frozen. For once, she wasn't smiling. Mom folded her arms. You're being dramatic. And there it was. The one phrase they always used to dismiss me. To shrink me down. To keep Bella above and me beneath. I'm done, I said quietly. I'm not pretending anymore. I turned and walked to my room, shut the door, and sobbed until I was empty. Not because they forgot my birthday, but because they forgot me. After that night, something in me shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the loud, screaming kind of way. I was something worse, numb. It's like the fire inside me had burned everything down, and now I was just sifting through ashes, trying to find the pieces of myself that hadn't turned to smoke. My parents didn't speak to me for 3 days. Not one word. And honestly, I preferred it that way. Bella avoided me too, though I caught her peeking into my room once or twice. Maybe she felt guilty. Maybe she was just curious to see what it looked like when the family scapegoat finally snapped. But guilt was a currency I'd stopped accepting from her a long time ago. I started watching them differently after that. Like a detective standing inside her own home, finally noticing the clues she'd missed all these years. And the more I looked, the worse it got. It wasn't just the way they coddled Bella or ignored my efforts. It was deeper, woven into the everyday moments that made up our lives. The way my mom always spoke softer to Bella. The way Dad's eyes lit up when she entered a room, how his entire body shifted, posture, tone, even energy, whenever she was near. It was subtle, but once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. I'd bring home groceries, help clean the kitchen, do well on a test. Silence. Bella would spill orange juice and laugh about it. She's so playful. She'd break curfew and blame traffic. It's okay, honey. Thanks for being honest. There was this one evening, a small moment that broke me more than any big blow-up ever could. Dad was showing Bella how to use an old camera he used to keep locked away in his closet. I'd asked to see that camera when I was younger, and he told me it was too expensive and not a toy. But there he was, letting her hold it, explaining shutter speed and aperture like she was some prodigy. And the worst part? She wasn't even interested. She giggled, snapped blurry pictures of the cat, and wandered off halfway through. He just smiled and shook his head like she was some precious mystery he'd never get tired of solving. I stood in the hallway, unnoticed, like always. And it hit me, they didn't just love Bella more. They loved her differently. It wasn't even about favoritism anymore. It was about something else. Something I couldn't name. Something I needed to understand. I started digging. Not physically. Just observing. Asking small questions. Watching old photo albums. Listening closely. And one night, when I was flipping through an old family album I'd found in the attic, I noticed something strange. There were dozens of photos of my mom holding baby me, but there were barely any of my dad with me as a baby. With Bella? He was in every shot, holding her, feeding her, playing with her, grinning like he was looking at the sun. I told myself it was coincidence, but the feeling in my gut said otherwise. There was a pattern here, and patterns don't lie. The photo album haunted me for days. I kept going back to it like it held some invisible ink I just hadn't learned to read yet. Each time, I looked a little closer. My infant face, always in my mother's arms. Dad hovering somewhere in the background, or not in the photo at all. But Bella? She was practically his. I mean that literally. Every birthday photo, every beach trip, every hospital shot after she scraped her knee, he was there. Not just there, but glowing. Like the sun rose and set with her. And something in me snapped the moment I asked him why. We were in the garage. He was organizing tools he hadn't used in years, trying to look busy, like always. Dad? I asked, casually at first. Why aren't you in any of the baby pictures with me? He froze, just for a second, then shrugged. I was working a lot back then. Long hours. You know how it was. I nodded slowly. But you were there for all of Bella's. Even the random ones. He shot me a look, not angry, but warning. The kind of look that says you're touching something you shouldn't. I made up for it, didn't I? No. I said before I could stop myself. You didn't. You put the wrench down a little too hard. Is there a point to this? Yeah. I said, heart racing. There is. But I didn't say it. Not yet. Because I didn't know it yet. Not fully. I just had the spark of something wrong, something off. So I started digging for real. I waited until I was alone. Late nights, locked doors. I combed through old documents in the filing cabinet. Birth certificates, school records, hospital forms, anything that might explain the gap. And then I found it. An old folder stuffed behind tax papers, yellowed with time. Inside were medical forms from when Bella was a baby, insurance statements, pediatric reports, lab results. But something didn't fit. The forms listed Bella's blood type as AB positive. Mine was O negative. I knew this because of an accident I had when I was 12. My mom had cried when she saw the blood, but Dad barely reacted. That memory hit me like a slap. Because biologically, parents with certain blood types can't produce certain combinations. I didn't remember the science exactly, but I knew O negative and AB positive didn't add up. So I Googled it. And what I found made my stomach twist into knots. 2 O negative parents cannot produce an AB positive child. It's genetically impossible. I froze. My mind was sprinting ahead, dragging me behind it. There were only 2 possibilities. Either Bella wasn't my full sister, or Dad wasn't my real father. Both options felt like a punch to the lungs. But when I looked at Bella, her face, her eyes, her mannerisms, I knew. She looked just like him. The same laugh, the same smirk, the same infuriating way of dismissing people when she didn't want to deal with discomfort. But me? People always said I looked like Mom. Only Mom. Suddenly the past started lining up like dominoes. The way he acted so distant when I was a baby, how he treated me like a burden instead of a daughter, the way he lit up only when Bella walked into the room. What if the truth wasn't that he favored her? What if the truth was she was his only daughter, and I wasn't his at all? The world didn't feel real for a few days. I walked through it like I was underwater, colors muted, sounds muffled, emotions dulled by the weight of what I might have uncovered. I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Not to Mom, not to Bella, not even to myself. But once you see the cracks in your foundation, you can't pretend the house is safe anymore. I had to know. So I did the one thing no child should ever feel compelled to do. I ordered a DNA test. It felt surreal, spitting into a tube in the bathroom like I was committing some betrayal. But how could I betray a man who never even saw me as his to begin with? While I waited for the results, I watched them all closely. Every conversation became a study in lies. Every glance from Dad felt hollow. Bella's voice grated more than ever. That false sweetness, that tone of entitlement she wore like perfume. Mom was harder to read. She still made me tea in the evenings. Still asked if I'd eaten. Still folded my laundry without me asking. But there was a twitch behind her eyes. Like she knew something. Like she'd always known. And then, the email arrived. I remember staring at the subject line for 10 minutes before I opened it. Your results are ready. I clicked through, my heart punching my ribs like it was trying to escape. And there it was. Plain as day. Dad, 0% biological match. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. Every childhood memory twisted into a cruel joke in an instant. The birthday parties he skipped. The graduation he left early. The way he smiled at Bella, but barely looked at me. It wasn't just emotional neglect. It was rejection written into my DNA. I wasn't his daughter. Not by blood. Not by choice. Not by anything that mattered to him. And yet I had spent 16 years calling him Dad, trying to earn his approval, convincing myself that maybe next time I'd be enough. He had known. He had to have known. I printed the results, put them in a folder, and waited for the right moment. That Sunday night, I came to the dinner table with shaking hands and that folder under my arm. We sat down like any other night. Mom passed the peas. Bella bragged about something ridiculous, getting extra credit for a presentation she clearly copied online. And Dad, he barely looked up from his plate. Until I cleared my throat. I have something to say, I said quietly. For pairs of eyes turned to me. I placed the folder in the middle of the table and opened it. No build-up. No theatrics. Just the truth. laid bare on white paper. Bella leaned over, confused. Mom froze. Dad went pale. I'm not your daughter, I said, locking eyes with the man I once thought I shared blood with. And you've known that, haven't you? No one spoke. The silence stretched so long, I thought I might scream just to break it. Then Dad stood up slowly, pushing his chair back like it weighed 100 pounds. And in the coldest voice I've ever heard, he said, I told your mother this would come back to haunt us. The room was silent. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, it feels heavy. Like something sacred just shattered, and we were all waiting to see who would step on the shards first. Dad didn't look at me again. He walked out of the dining room like my existence didn't concern him anymore. Like now that the secret was out, he was free from the burden of pretending. Bella looked stunned. Her fork hung in the air, forgotten, her mouth slightly open. What is she talking about? She whispered, eyes darting between me and Mom. Mom didn't move. She just sat there, her hands clenched in her lap, staring at the folder like it was a grenade that had just exploded in slow motion. Mom, I said, say something. She blinked once, then twice, and finally let out a breath like she'd been holding it in for years. It was one mistake, she said, her voice cracking. One. The word hit me like a slap. Mistake. That's what I am to you? I asked, my voice shaking. A mistake. No, she said quickly, rising to her feet. That's not what I meant. You're my daughter, Renee. You're mine. I raised you. I nursed you. But he's not my father. She looked away, and that was all the confirmation I needed. I was young, she whispered. Your father, your biological father, he wasn't someone I planned to be with forever. I was scared. I didn't even tell him I was pregnant. Your dad, the man you grew up with, he offered to raise you like his own. But then Bella came along and everything changed. My stomach turned. Changed how? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. He resented me, she said flatly. He resented you. But he wouldn't admit it. So he just distanced himself, bit by bit, until only Bella was left. I wanted to scream. 16 years of pretending. 16 years of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home. And it was all because of a decision they made before I was even born. And you let it happen, I said bitterly. You watched him treat me like a stranger for years. You let him praise Bella and ignore me. You let him break me. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't care. You could have told me, I said. You could have warned me, given me a chance to understand what I was up against. I didn't want you to feel unloved, she said weakly. I laughed, a cold, bitter laugh that echoed in the silence. Well, that worked out. Bella finally found her voice. So wait, we're not full sisters? No, I said, turning to her. We're not. She looked hurt, like she was the one who'd been betrayed. Does this mean you're leaving? She asked. You're not staying here, are you? And that question made something in me snap. I was never really here to begin with, I said. I was tolerated, decorated, managed, but not loved. Not the way you were. Then I looked at Mom, who was now openly sobbing, and I said something I'd never dared before. You lied to all of us. But mostly, you lied to me. And I can't forgive that. Not now. I stood up, walked away. No one tried to stop me. Not even Bella. I packed a bag that night with shaking hands. Not just clothes, but journals, photographs, bits of who I used to be. I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving behind an entire identity, one I never asked for, one that had been built on lies. And as I walked out the front door, I knew. My family wasn't breaking. It had already been broken. I was just the only one who had the courage to admit it. It's a strange thing, leaving a place you've called home your entire life, not because you're moving, but because you finally admitted it was never really yours to begin with. I didn't cry when I left. I thought I would. Thought I'd collapse on the front steps or look back longingly through the rearview mirror like people do in movies. But I didn't. I drove away with the windows down, letting the cold night air sting my face. It felt like shedding a second skin, painful, but necessary. I crashed on a friend's couch for the first few days. Her name was Kira, someone I barely spoke to at school until I confided in her during a group project. She didn't ask questions when I showed up at her door with a duffel bag and a hollow look in my eyes. She just hugged me. That was the first moment I felt seen in weeks. No conditions. No comparisons. No lies. Just me. She gave me a blanket, a warm meal, and silence when I needed it. And in that silence, I started to rebuild. At first, it was simple things. Sleeping without waking up in dread. Drinking coffee without hearing Bella complain that hers didn't have enough foam. Walking through a room without bracing for a dismissive glance. Then I started writing again. Journaling. Sketching. Pouring my thoughts onto paper like they'd been locked behind my teeth for years. It was messy, raw, sometimes incoherent, but it was mine. My story. Unfiltered. Untamed. Free. Mom tried calling. Twice. She left voicemails, crying. Said she missed me. Said she didn't want our family to fall apart. Said she loved me, which, ironically, was something I had waited 16 years to hear and now didn't believe for a second. I didn't answer. I didn't block her either. I wasn't ready to become ice. I just needed space. Bella sent one text. I don't know what to say. I didn't know. I'm sorry if I ever made things worse. And strangely, I believed her. Because I don't think Bella ever truly understood how much she was favored. She was raised in a world where love and privilege were handed to her on a silver platter. She didn't know what it felt like to beg for it, to earn it and still be denied. But her ignorance didn't excuse the hurt. And forgiveness wasn't something I could give like a Band-Aid. That would take time. Maybe years. Maybe never. In those weeks away, I realized something beautiful and terrifying. I didn't know who I was. Not really. Because so much of who I had been was built around trying to be someone else's version of a good daughter. A good sister. A good girl. Now, I had to figure out who Renee was, not who Mom wanted me to be. Not who Dad ignored. Not who Bella overshadowed. Just me. I got a part-time job at a bookstore downtown. The manager was kind and didn't ask too many questions when I said I was between homes. I saved every penny. I started looking into community college options. Applied for financial aid under my real name. No longer just Renee Harper, daughter of a lie. For the first time, I breathed, really breathed. And I knew. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. 6 months have passed. That may not seem like much time to most people. But for someone who's spent her whole life being an echo in her own house, half a year feels like a rebirth. I live in a tiny studio now. The ceiling leaks when it rains, and the heater groans like it has asthma, but it's mine. The first space that's ever belonged to me, where no one hovers in doorways with disappointed eyes or smiles that don't reach their face. It's quiet, peaceful, and when I hang my own artwork on the walls, no one takes it down to make space for Bella's. I still get texts from Mom every now and then. They've softened. No more pleas or manipulative guilt. Just updates. Polite check-ins. A photo of the dog. Once, even a picture of an old drawing I made as a kid that she found tucked in a book. She said, I never realized how good you were. Too late. Dad hasn't reached out. Not once. But that no longer breaks me. Because now I know the truth. He never saw me as his, and maybe he couldn't. But that failure was his, not mine. And it's no longer a weight I carry on my back like a chain. Bella and I met up for coffee last month. It was strange. She looked smaller somehow. Quieter. There was no glow around her this time, no spotlight. Just a girl with shaky hands and a guilty heart. I didn't know, she told me. I swear. I thought you just didn't like me. I didn't offer forgiveness. But I offered truth. I didn't hate you, Bella. I hated the way they loved you. I hated how invisible I became every time you walked into the room. She nodded. Said she was in therapy now. That she was starting to see things she'd never noticed before. I wished her well. And that was that. We weren't sisters. Not by blood. Not even really by bond. But we had grown from the same broken tree, 2 branches twisted in opposite directions. Now, I'm planning my own. I changed my name legally 2 weeks ago. Not because I hated the one I was born with, but because it felt like a chapter one didn't write. A label placed on me by people who never really saw me. Now I go by Renee Callahan. My real father's last name, the man my mother never told about me. I haven't contacted him. Not yet. I don't know if I will. Maybe one day. But I wanted to carry at least one part of me that wasn't shaped by lies. It's funny. All my life, I thought I was the broken one. The angry one. The cold one. The girl who never smiled quite right. Never said the right thing. Never knew how to make herself small enough to be loved properly. But I was never broken. I was just buried. And now? I've dug myself out. With truth. With pain. With courage. And I will never let anyone bury me again.